Well, now we will continue the second part of chapter 7, talking about producer surplus and the market outcome. So let's first look at cost and the supply curve. We would like to say cost is the value of everything a sellers must give up to produce a good. For example, the opportunity cost that we have already learned in chapter 1, right? So here, the includes the cost of all the resources used to produce goods, including the value of the seller's time. So we said the value of the seller's time, we can treat that part as the opportunity cost, right? And you can see this is the example which shows the cost of the three sellers in the loan cutting business. Okay, so for the loan cutting business, Jack cost will be $10 per hour. Okay, but Jeanette, her cost will be $20 per hour, and for Chrissy, the cost will be $35 per hour. Okay, so here is the different cost related to different sellers. And we would like to say a seller will produce and sell the goods or services only if the market price is higher than their cost, right? So for example, cost, we would like to say cost is a measure of willingness to sell, okay? Now, we can use this cost, okay, to derive for our supply schedule, okay? So for example, if the market price now for the loan cutting is just below $10, okay, so 0 to 9, then you would like to say no one will offer this type of their service, right? Because the lowest cost for those three sellers were from Jack, and their cost will be $10. But now the market price is still below $10, so no one will offer the service, okay? However, if the market price lies between $10 and $19, we now know that Jack would definitely offer the loan cutting service, right? And if the market price increased to $20 to $34, then two-person or related to seller can offer the loan cutting service, etc. When the market price is $35 higher, then three of them can offer the loan cutting services. Okay, so based on this supply schedule, actually we can derive for our supply curve. Okay, you would like to say when the market price lies between 0 to 9, then no one will offer the service, right? And when the market price lies between $10 to $19, Jack will offer the loan cutting services. And when market price become higher and higher, then more sellers will join into this market and offer loan cutting services. Okay, so this is the supply curve that we can derive from the supply schedule. Very similar from the demand side that we just talked about in consumer surplus. Then you can see from this supply schedule, okay, or supply curve, we can say at each quantity, the height actually measures sellers' willingness to sell or measures the marginal sellers, the cost. Make sense or not? So let's look at the first height. From 0 to 1, we can get a height actually equal $10, right? So that $10 actually measures the cost of Jack. And Jack, we can say Jack is the marginal sellers, right? So when the quantity increase to 2 units, you can get a height equal $20, right? So $20 here is also the cost of Jeanette, right? And Jeanette, we can treat Jeanette as the marginal sellers when a quantity equal 2. And you can see when the quantity increase to 3, you can also get a height, and the height there will equal $35, right? So $35 is actually the cost from Chrissy, right? And we would like to say that 35 measures the cost of marginal seller, that is Chrissy. So you can see the height, as I just showed you from this slice. The height at each quantity actually measures the cost of marginal seller. So from that part, we can just derive for producer surplus, okay? So producer surplus always abbreviated as PS, okay? So measures the amount that sellers received and minus, okay, minus the cost the sellers need to have, okay? So the producer surplus actually, PS here will equal the market price subtract cost, okay? So this is the way that we can compute for producer surplus. You can see if now the market price is $25. So first you need to figure out if the market price of the loan cutting service is $25 per hour, who will offer this loan cutting service? Jack will definitely offer the loan cutting services, right? And anyone would like to offer the loan cutting services when the market price equal $25. Jeanette, of course. So two persons in this market price can offer a loan cutting service. So we can get the producer surplus for Jack will equal the price, current price subtract the cost, which will equal 25 $25 subtract $10, which will equal $15, right? We can also get the producer surplus for Jeanette. So for Jeanette, still price subtract cost, right? The price is $25 and then the cost is $20. So we have $5 as the producer surplus from Jeanette. And from here, we can get the total surplus of the market because Chrissy will not offer the loan cutting services, as the loan cutting service for her, okay, the cost will be $30, $35, and now the market price is just 25. So Chrissy were not in the market. Therefore, we can get the total producer surplus will equal 15 plus $5, okay, so which will be $20. So let's see how to measure this total surplus also from the graph. You can get the total surplus from the graph is you can draw a horizontal line across 25, okay, across 25. And then you can find out the area will be like this shape, okay? And then you might think about, okay, from producer surplus, we measures the area below the demand curve and above the market price to get a consumer surplus, right? But here, in order to get a producer surplus, we need to get the area below the market price and above the supply curve, right? So we would like to say the total surplus, total producer surplus, okay, total producer surplus is the area below or under the market price, but above the supply curve. We can also compute the producer surplus from our regular supply curve. So you can see from this graph, we have the supply curve upward trend, right? And now it's a straight line, not a staircase. So let me show you. We have the price here, we have the quantity here, and then this is the supply curve. For the supply curve, we have this one probably equal $15. Maybe here. Oh, sorry. Yes, it's 15. And then we would like to say if the market price is $40, okay? If the market price is $40, then first you need to draw a horizontal line across the whole graph, and you can find out one point on the supply curve. So from the supply curve, you can find out the corresponding market demand, market supply equal 25. Then which area will measures the total producer surplus? The area below this market price, but above the supply curve. So actually, this area here will measures the total producer surplus. And how we can get this producer surplus here? It's just equal the area of this triangle, right? So we use half times the base times height. It will equal half times the base will equal 25. The height will equal 40, subtract 15, okay? So half times 25 times 25. Then finally, we can get the answer here will equal $312.50. Okay, so this is the way that we can compute for producer surplus. And if we says the market price now decreased to $30, then what will happens? If the market price decreased to $30, what will happens? We notice if the market price decreased to $30, the total surplus what the total producer surplus would decrease to 120.15. Okay, you would decrease the total surplus to $125.50, right? Which will be the area that's showing in this graph, the green area. Then we need to know what are the two reasons that result in this producer surplus decrease. So similar when we talk about in consumer surplus, here we need to figure out what's the reasons that will result in the decrease in the producer surplus once the market price decrease. So the first one, you can see for that triangle, okay, for that triangle showing on this graph, actually shows when the market price decrease, some of the buyers, or sorry, some of the sellers will find a market price actually cannot cover their cost, right? So they will leave the market. When they leave the market, then the producer surplus will decrease. There are also some other sellers in the market. Now they only have lower price. So for the people who still in this market, for the sellers who still in this market, actually they will enjoy lower producer surplus. Okay, and that will be showing on that rectangle. Okay, so there are also two reasons resulting in the decrease in the producer surplus. Now let's look at one practice question, okay, regarding to this part for producer surplus. We will go through a producer surplus a little bit faster, okay, because we go through the consumer surplus in details. And this part is very similar to consumer surplus. Now let's look at this practice question. For this practice question, let me first draw the graph first. We have the price here, we have the quantity here, and then this is the supply curve, okay? So this is the supply curve. For the supply curve, it asks you first, please find out the marginal seller's cost when quantity equal 10. So do you remember how we do that? If this is 10 units, okay, what can you do? Please draw a vertical line, okay? Please just draw a vertical line across the whole graph, and then you can find out intersection point, right? And then when you find out this intersection point, you can get the price, corresponding price actually equal $20. So $20 will be the marginal cost. So it will be the marginal seller's cost when quantity equal 10. And then it also asks you, please find out the total producer surplus when the market price equal $20. So which part will measures this total producer surplus when the market price equal $20? Remember, draw a horizontal line across this graph, and then the area below this market price and above the supply curve, this part, will measures this part will measures the total surplus. So you can see the total producer surplus will equal half times base times height, right? And then in this case, we will have the base equal 10 and then the height equal 20. So the total producer surplus will equal $100. Now, next one. If the market price increased to $30, what will happen? So if the market price now increased to $30, then what you need to do, let me see, if it's $30, if it's $30, first you need to also draw a horizontal line across the whole graph and find out the intersection point. So this is the intersection point, right? And the intersection points, we can find out a correspondent quantity actually equal 15. So we know we have the new producer surplus, right? We have the new producer surplus. And the new producer surplus will be much higher than the original one when the price equal $20. But we need to figure out the reasons behind why the producer surplus will increase, right? So part of their producer surplus increase because there are more units will be sold in the market, right? Part of them and because of for the current sellers in the market, they now can have enjoy higher price, right? Enjoy higher market price, which means their profit will increase. Therefore, we can divide the increase of producer surplus into two parts. So what you need to do is please draw a vertical line, okay? Please draw a vertical line for the quantity equal 10, okay? Then you derive the increase of the producer surplus into these two parts, okay? Part one will be this little triangle, okay? So this little triangle here will be our part one. I will write it down here. Our part one will be increase of the producer surplus because we sell 5 more units. Originally, only 10 units will be sold, right? But now 15 units will be sold. Therefore, it will bring the increase of the producer surplus, which measures in this part one. Still, area will equal half times base times height, right? And you will equal half. The base here we will equal 5, and then the height will equal 30 subtract $20. So we will have half times 5 times 10, which will equal $25. Okay, so this will be part one. Okay, selling 5 more units bring more producer surplus. And for part two, actually part two will be a little bit special. Part two measures for the sellers in the market. They now can enjoy higher price, right? They have more profits, which means their producer surplus also increase. And this will be the producer surplus increase based on part one. And this is the producer surplus based on part two. I put the two here. This this rectangular here measures for the person or for the buyers for the sellers who still sell 10 units. Actually, they now have higher, they now enjoy higher price and their producer surplus increase. And the area will just equal the area of this rectangular. 30 subtract $20 times 10. So $100. Okay, so we can say $100 increase based on the existing sellers who still sell 10 units. They can have their producer surplus increased by $100. However, for additional 5 units being sold, it will bring the producer surplus increased by $25. Okay, so these are the answers. You can see when the price increased to $30, the small triangular on the graph showing on the blue area, okay, will equal $25 as I shown here. And then for the increased of the producer surplus on the original 10 units, okay, showing on that rectangular, okay, that will equal $100. All right, now we already finished consumer surplus and producer surplus. Now let's move on to talk about total surplus. So total surplus is pretty straightforward. Okay, it's just the summation of producer surplus and consumer surplus. So I can write down the formulas for us to compute the producer surplus and consumer surplus. And then after that, we can just sum that two parts to get the total surplus. Okay? So as is showing on this graph, also as showing on this lecture slides, consumer surplus will equal willingness to pay subtract the market price, right? So this is the consumer surplus equal willingness to pay subtract price. And producer surplus equal price subtract cost, right? Therefore, when we sum these two parts to get a total surplus, TS, okay, it will equal to consumer surplus plus producer surplus, which will just equal willingness to pay subtract price plus price subtract cost. And then if you simplify this formula, actually you'll get willingness to pay minus price and then plus the price minus the cost. This is plus price, this is minus price, this is plus price, so these two parts can eliminate. So finally we have the total surplus will equal willingness to pay subtract cost, right? So we got a total surplus here would just equal value to buyers, which will be willingness to pay subtract cost to sellers. All right. And then finally, let's talk about the third part of market allocation of resources. So in a market economy, okay, we would like to say the allocation of resources is always decentralized. So there are some countries in the world, actually their economy is centralized, especially in several countries like Cuba, North Korea. Those economics actually government, the nation, the government actually control most of the resources, and then they control the allocation of those resources. However, in USA, in the European Unions, okay, the most of the market economy countries actually will use the market to allocate our resources. So the allocation of resources is determined by the interactions of many buyers and sellers in the market. So my question here is market's allocation of resources desirable? Or could a different allocation of resources can make our society better off? So for example, now we are in a market economic countries, right? So is that market the best way to allocate resources? Or maybe government could be the best way to allocate resources? This will be the question. Then to answer this, okay, we will use the total surplus as the measurement. Okay, the total surplus as the measurement of the society's well-being, and will consider whether the market's allocation is efficient or not. So let's look at it. As we just talked about, total surplus actually will equal value to buyers subtract cost to sellers, right? So allocation of resources is efficient if it can maximize the total surplus or not. So efficiency means, okay, the goods consumed by the buyers who value them most highly, okay? And then the goods are produced by the producers with the lowest cost. Make sense or not? Because our total surplus will equal values, will equal value to buyers subtract cost to sellers, right? We hope the value to buyers is higher as possible, and then the cost to sellers as lower as possible, which can make our total surplus as bigger as possible, right? So the rule of the thumb here is when the value of marginal buyers equal to the cost to the marginal sellers, then the total surplus can be maximized. So here is the rule of the thumb. Okay, when the marginal, okay, we'll say the value, this is important, the value to the marginal buyers equal, which means the value to the marginal buyers equal to the cost to the marginal sellers, then the total surplus cannot increase anymore, right? If the value to the marginal buyers still higher than the cost to the marginal sellers, then this total surplus can increase as well, right? Until the value to the marginal sellers equal to the cost to the marginal sellers, then we can get the total surplus maximized. Okay, so this is the rule of the thumb. Look at this graph. Look at this graph. We have the consumer surplus, we have the producer surplus, right? We can compute these two surplus from this demand and supply curve. Every buyer's whose willingness to pay is more than $30, okay? Because you can see the intersection point. So from the intersection point, we can find out the market equilibrium price equal $30, right? So we would like to say every buyers whose willingness to pay higher than $30, they actually will buy the product, right? We can also say every buyer's willingness to pay lower than $30, they will not purchase this product, right? If the market price is $30. So the buyer who value the good most highly are the ones who consume it. Of course, that's right. Now look at the sellers. If the market price at $30, then we will know the cost below $30, then the sellers would sell the product, right? So I summarize here that every sellers whose cost lower than $30, they will produce the good. However, for the sellers whose cost above $30, they will not produce the good, right? So the sellers with the lowest cost, they will produce the good. The sellers with the lowest cost, they will produce the good. And from this part, okay, from this graph, we can find out the market price is at $30, right? And the market equilibrium quantity is at 15 units. So we can get the total surplus equal to producer surplus plus the consumer surplus. And consumer surplus will be showing at this triangle, right? Because it's the area below the demand curve and above the market price. And for producer surplus, it will be the area below the market price but above the supply curve. So you can see from this graph, actually the big triangular, including consumer surplus and producer surplus, can measure our total surplus, right? And is it a market at this part efficient? We might discuss it, okay? So the first one, you can think about if the quantity now equal 10 units rather than 15 units. We know 15 units is the equilibrium quantity, right? So you can see when the quantity equal 10 units, the cost of producing the marginal units is 25. So this one, $25. The cost to the marginal sellers, $25. However, you can also get the value to the marginal sellers. You can just draw a vertical line, then you can get the value to marginal sellers equal 40 units or $40. They are not equal to each other, right? They are not equal to each other. Therefore, the total surplus cannot be maximized at this production, at this 10 units. Therefore, it can increase the total surplus by increasing the quantity. So from 10 units to 15 units, then we can maximize the total surplus, right? And this is also true for any quantity less than 15 units. All right. Now let's look at another case. If now the market quantity equal 20 rather than 15. So still similar, okay? Please draw a vertical line, okay? Please draw a vertical line across 20 units. You can get the cost to produce this 20 units, okay? The marginal unit, okay? To the cost of producing this marginal unit will be $35, okay? Will be $35 because you find out the points on the supply curve and then you can get the price equal 35 unit. It's $35. And then you can also find out the value to the marginal consumers. If the units equal 20, then you only $20. These two still not equal to each other. The rule of the thumb tells us the value to the marginal buyers should equal to the cost to marginal sellers, and then that will maximize the total surplus, right? However, if the market quantity is at 20 units rather than 15 units, we notice these two still not equal to each other. So what you can do is to reduce reduce the quantity to increase the total surplus. Okay, so reduce the quantity from $20 to $15. Then we will have the value to the marginal buyers just equal to the cost to the marginal sellers equal to equilibrium price at $30. Therefore, we would like to say, actually, the market equilibrium quantity can maximize the total surplus at any other quantity, okay? It can increase the total surplus by moving forward, either decrease the quantity or increase the quantity, okay, to maximize the total surplus if it's not at the market equilibrium quantity. Okay, so the conclusion here we would like to make today will be, actually, markets are usually a good way to organize economic activity. And the important note here we would like to say, we derive for these lessons assume our markets are perfectly competitive. Okay, if in other markets like monopoly market or oligopoly market, then the total surplus will be maximized by different way. Okay, so in other conditions, we will start in later chapters, and then the markets might fail to allocate the resources efficiently. Okay, because the market is not perfectly competitive in those later chapters. Okay, so let me summarize what we have learned in this chapter. The height of the demand curve actually reflects the value of the good to buyers, or we can say the height of the demand curve actually measures the willingness to pay. Consumer surplus is the differences between willingness to pay and the market price. And on the graph, we can see the consumer surplus is just the area below the demand curve and above the market price. Okay? And we also say that the height of the supply curve actually measures the cost from sellers. And producer surplus, PS, is just the differences between market price and the cost. From the graph, we would like to say the producer surplus will be the area below the market price and above the supply curve. Okay? To measure the society's well-being, we use the total surplus, right? And total surplus is just the summation of consumer surplus and the producer surplus. The efficiency in the market means the total surplus can be maximized. The total surplus can be maximized, then we like to say the market allocation resources is efficiency. And which means the rule of the thumb tell us when the value to the marginal buyers equal to the value of marginal sellers, then the total surplus can be maximized, which means in the market equilibrium point, the total surplus can be maximized. Okay, so under the perfect competition, the market outcome is efficient. However, in other markets, it might not be true. Okay, for example, in monopoly market, oligopoly market. Okay, so I think that's the end of chapter 7, and we will talk about another application in chapter 8. Thank you so much.